U.S. President Donald Trump hosted his visiting South African counterpart Cyril Ramaphosa at the White House. The meeting, at least for Ramaphosa, was aimed at resetting strained U.S.-South African ties. But Trump used the meeting to confront Ramaphosa over baseless allegations of systematic killing of white farmers.
These are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. Horrible death. Death. I must tell you, Mr. President, we have had a tremendous number of people, especially since they've seen this. Generally, they're white farmers, and they're fleeing South Africa, and it's a very sad thing to see. But I hope we can have an explanation of that.
Ramaphosa, eager to not feature in a repeat of an Oval Office showdown like that of Zelensky's in February, de-escalated as he countered Trump's claims.
I really would like us to talk about it very calmly. We were taught by Nelson Mandela that whenever there are problems, people need to sit down around a table and talk about it. It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends, like those who are here. When we have talks between us around a quiet table, it will take President Trump to listen to them.
Despite the heated exchange in which Trump played videos on a large TV of an opposition party leader, Julius Malema, leading a controversial chant, he invited Ramaphosa and his team to a private lunch for further discussions. Following the meeting, Ramaphosa downplayed Trump's criticisms, adding that their private meeting was not centered around his concern regarding white farmers. Benjamin Netanyahu says the war on Gaza will continue and end with the Palestinian territory being under complete Israeli security control. In a press conference late on Wednesday, the Israeli leader noted that despite mounting global pressure, the war will only end when Israel achieves its objectives. Netanyahu says that fighting will continue until all hostages are released and with ensuring Gaza's full disarmament and the complete destruction of Hamas. He also stressed that after ensuring these goals are realized, Israel will proceed with U.S. President Donald Trump's controversial post-war plans. Trump had previously proposed that all of Gaza's residents are to be resettled in neighboring countries, followed by the U.S., quote, taking ownership of the enclave. The plan was met with global criticism, with many countries refusing the proposal, stressing that Gaza is Palestinian and should be for the Palestinians. Netanyahu also stated that he is open to a temporary ceasefire to release the remaining hostages, of which Israel believes 20 of the 58 are still alive.
EU Foreign Chief Kaja Kallas has called on Israel to investigate after IDF troops fired what they said were warning shots near a delegation of foreign diplomats in the West Bank.
We definitely call on Israel to investigate this incident and also hold these accountable who are responsible for this, and any threats on diplomats' lives are unacceptable.
The group of regional, European and Western diplomats were standing near the entrance of the Jenin refugee camp when the gunshots started. Jenin has been the site of Israel's widespread crackdown against West Bank militants since earlier this year, which has displaced tens of thousands of residents. The Israeli military said the visit had been approved, but the delegation deviated from the approved route and later apologized for the incident. Several European foreign ministers, including from Italy, France, and Portugal, have summoned the Israeli ambassadors in their countries for an explanation.
Foreign ministers from the European Union and the African Union, AU, on Wednesday vowed to strengthen cooperation for peace, security and economic partnership. The commitment came at the EU-AU Foreign Ministerial meeting in Brussels, which the European Council said took stock of progress made since the last summit in 2022.
The foreign affairs ministers of the European Union and the African Union have met for the third time. The last time a meeting like this was held, Russia had not invaded its neighbor, Ukraine, the war in Sudan had not begun, and France, a leading member of the EU, had not lost its influence in the Sahel, where its military was forced out last year. But even more, both the EU and the AU are now confronted with a rapidly changing geopolitical situation.
Si nous prenons les questions de paix et sécurité, nous sommes tous en face des situations de conflit, que ce soit en Afrique, tout comme en Europe. Et donc, il nous faut nécessairement trouver des solutions à ces conflits.
EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas lamented Russia's growing misinformation campaign in Africa, saying though it was hard to counter, the European Union will not give up the fight.
It is true that we have the fight of narratives everywhere, and this misinformation is one of the tools that Russia is using, especially in Africa. We have to fight the misinformation and foreign malign influence all the time, but it is, of course, increasingly hard.
Foreign ministers from both continents also committed to mediation efforts for ending the war in Sudan. According to the EU, Africa remains a geopolitical priority for the continent at a time of increased geopolitical volatility.
EU trade negotiator Maros Sefcovic has confirmed EU standards on food safety are not up for negotiation in the talks with the U.S. over tariffs. The EU and U.S. are locked in talks due to expire in early July after U.S. President Donald Trump issued a 90-day window to negotiate. Washington has decried EU safety standards on agricultural products as one of the reasons for the tariff war.
I think we've been quite clear that we clearly would preserve our regulatory autonomy. And if I follow a little bit the discussion in the United States of America, I mean, there is also lots of talk about, having healthier food, what should be, the composition of the food processing and so on and so forth. And I think we already had this discussion in Europe, and we are very proud of our health and safety standards. If it comes to food, if it comes to agri-food production, we are going clearly to stick to them.
So that's not up for negotiation, standards?
I think if it comes to health and safety issues, I mean, clearly these are not up for negotiations.
Meanwhile, the EU negotiator says he is pushing for a fair and balanced deal with the U.S. But he says the EU stands ready to implement up to 95 billion euros of countermeasures if negotiations fail.
We are already paying 10% tariff. We are already paying 25% tariff for steel. We are already paying 25% for cars. And we really believe that this is simply not fair. So we want to resolve it through the negotiated solutions. But of course, we are also preparing alternative where we would have to protect the European jobs and European companies. And therefore, we started the consultations on eventual rebalancing measures.
A new series of U.S. products could be targeted for potential EU tariffs, including aerospace champion Boeing or alcohol products like bourbon. You can listen to the full interview on the Europe Conversation this Friday.
Central Asian countries are coming together to maximize the region's economic opportunities and an effort to support Afghanistan, who is now signaling a business-oriented international outreach after years of isolation. A strong supporter of Afghanistan, Uzbekistan initiated an international summit in the southern border city of Termez, called the Dialogue on Connectivity between Central and South Asia, to create transport corridors, energy infrastructure, and enable simpler trade.
Главная цель диалога – это сформировать такую постоянно действующую платформу, в рамках которого представители стран Центральной Азии, представители стран Южной Азии могли бы, по сути, обсуждать самый широкий спектр вопросов, начиная от вопросов взаимосвязанности, торгово-экономического сотрудничества, обменов в области гуманитарных связей.
The summit focused on strategic regional projects such as the Trans-Afghan Corridor, which will connect Central Asia to South Asia, Europe and China, and also the Afghan Trans-Railroad to better connect Central and South Asia.
Без вовлечения Афганистана в мирохозяйственные отношения нашего региона, без реализации того потенциала, который имеет Афганистан, и в том числе в транзитном отношении, невозможно говорить об этих целях.
Uzbekistan insisted it was focused on the stabilization of its southern neighbor Afghanistan, which, in its perpetual state of war, used to be an obstacle to region's access to the sea in Pakistan. Afghanistan's deputy foreign minister joined the summit to announce Kabul's intentions to get involved in trade, transit, and stronger regional economic cooperation, to act what he called a regional connector and a transit route.
افغانستان د اسلامي امارت په راتګ سره د دې جوګه شوی دی چې دلته د هیوادونو تر مابین د اتصال او نقطه وګرځي او د دوی موقعیت د ټولو هیوادونو د اړوندو شاوخوا هیوادونو په ګټه باندې دی.
The meeting was held at a place at the Uzbek-Afghan border which best illustrates Uzbekistan's approach to stability of the region. It is a zone for the free trade with Afghanistan where Afghan citizens enjoy visa-free regime, can open their businesses and use free services such as a modern hospital and a school where they learn how to run their businesses. From Termez in Uzbekistan for Euronews, Boyan Barkic.
Indian author Banu Mushtaq and translator Deepa Bhashti won the International Booker Prize for Heartlamp. The collection of 12 short stories was written over a period of more than 30 years. It chronicles the everyday lives and struggles of women in southern India.
This moment feels like 1,000 fire files lighting up a single sky, brief, brilliant, and utterly collective.
Heartlamp's win marks the first time the prestigious Booker Prize was given to a collection of short stories.